Hello, everyone. I'm Martha Cantor. I run College Promise in Washington, D.C. We're a national organization and we're celebrating our fifth anniversary. We want to thank all of you for joining us today in the middle of COVID 19. And what we're going to talk about is a workshop for college students. So, hopefully, if you're a college student, you're on this webinar. If you are a person that's interested in helping college students, do well, then we welcome you as well. So, a few minutes about College Promise, and then I'll turn this over to my colleagues. At College Promise, what we're about is building public support, widespread support across the country to fund 2 or more years of education beyond high school. That means a community college certificate of achievement. It means a 2 year degree. It means a 2 year transfer to a university, like one of our students just did successfully, and she's about finishing up at the university. It means 4 years if some of the states and local communities have more generous assets to give to students. And really, the envelope is college affordability. With the spiraling costs of college and the student debt that just went off the charts in the last 10 years, we've got to really build back to something that's affordable for every student in the country that's interested in working hard, having mentors, doing all the work they need to do in class, and moving into a future that we would all want for each and every student. So, all through September, we've been hosting events for current and future college students. We want to galvanize students in high school. We want to impact students in middle school or elementary school that yes, college is possible and we want you. And I'm hoping that all of our 4,500 colleges and universities can reach out to students at all ages. At College Promise, we say we start at birth, and we want every student to have a savings account, a 529, money that they can spend for things like food and housing and other things when they turn 18 and are ready to move on. So we have these webinars, and the next one is on managing debt and developing financial literacy. And you'll hear about the tools that students can use and the different kinds of advice from experts and strategies to succeed in this really unprecedented school year. So we hope you'll join us for that discussion as well. But before we get started with today's discussion, let me share a couple of resources that we've developed at College Promise that are recently out on the web that are free to you. We have been working with ETS actually since 2016 on a whole set of design teams that are looking at who are the students today, what do they need, and how can we help them. So we have a new series of reports that have just come out from the first phase of this work, and we call it our College Promise ETS Ecosystem Initiative. And what we're trying to do, ecosystems actually plural, we're trying to demonstrate that all students can benefit from going beyond high school. And here are the needs of dreamers. Here are the needs of justice impacted students. Here are the needs of first generation students, students with disabilities, parent students. These are the students in our country today. So in support of this, we have those policy briefs that will sort of drill down from the research reports that have a lot of data in them to make it meaningful for people that just want a quick read. But you can go back to a lot of the data analysis and other reports that we really depended on these design teams to develop and bring forward so that you can look at our first 5 teams. We talked about traditional students, ages predominantly 18 to 24. These are first-time freshmen. This is what the country thinks are the students today, but that's not all the students today. We have more students who are adults, students that raised kids, that didn't have the chance to go right after high school, that stopped out, that dropped out, that had, decided to work, all kinds of things. We have veterans, 18, if you decide to go into the military and you serve for 2 years, you serve for 10 years, you come back to this country, we want Promise programs to be available to veterans returning to the US because we think that veterans can really take advantage of doing more than high school. Undocumented students, dreamers. We have some states that are very generous. I came from California. love California. Dreamers can get an education. We need to do a whole lot of work at the federal level, but we've got great recommendations from the design team on Dreamers. And the fifth one was justice impacted students. These are students that are either in prison or got released. They're prevalent throughout every community in America. How are they served? How can we meet their needs in higher education? So if you look at the chat box, we have the links to these programs. And earlier this year, we published a COVID-19 resource guide for students, families, and K-12 teachers, administrators, college professors, post-secondary institutional administrators, and nonprofits. We update the guide pretty much every week. I just put a resource in there that we just got from one of the think tanks in Washington. And so it's easy to navigate, and we hope you'll use it. And please know that we do update it. It's on our website. You can have it anytime. If you need, social emotional help, go to that section. If you want to look at curriculum, go to that section. If, whatever problem you have, you may find it in that section. So getting back to what we're doing today. For today's webinar, we want to focus on bringing students advice on health and wellness. That's the envelope. And for our students across the country, millions and millions, existing challenges already threatening college access, college affordability, the cost of college, as I mentioned, the navigational path to, through, and beyond college. We've got all of those things that are barriers. And now we also have COVID-19, the pandemic. With all the changes going on in our daily lives today, and I don't know where you are, but you see a really great background that just says College Promise, but I'm in my living room, and I put in a home office in my living room because my husband's upstairs and I'm down here, and we each have a floor. So we're really lucky to have a little of our own space, and I'm near the kitchen, so that's even better. But we have all these challenges, and we have to really navigate them with the best information we can get. And we can focus on getting through short term and ignore the long-term needs when really mindfulness, healthy habits, ways to really deal with stress, ways to connect with people, either face-to-face or through these Zoom programs that we're all doing. We've got all of these needs, and we need people. We need face-to-face. And we're really talking through technology a lot more right now because of COVID-19. And so we have all these magnified concerns about health while we're on campus. And we want to talk directly to students, and who better than a student who's an expert to talk to our students. So we're thrilled to have this resource. And we're going to provide a lot of resources on the chat. And also, so we'll have this whole session recorded and sent to you so that you can play it back at another time. So I'm thrilled now to turn my podium over to Evan Weissman. We've been working with Evan for many years as well, and we're thrilled that you could moderate the conversation this afternoon. Thank you, Evan, and thank you all for joining us.
Thanks, Martha. So again, welcome everyone. I'm Evan Weissman from MDRC. We're a research firm based in New York, but I'm here at my home in Oakland. Like Martha and many of you, I'm sitting inside my home instead of at my office or at school. And I've actually taken over my kids' bedroom. They're both off in college, so I got their bedroom as my office now. MDRC does research, and my research is really focused on how to improve college going and college completion rates for students, in particular students of color, students with limited income. And one thing that's really clear in the research is that doing well academically takes a lot more than just the academics. And especially now, students really need to stay physically and mentally healthy if they're going to thrive in college. So I'm really excited to moderate today, to be talking with Hella, who's, as Martha said, is both a student and a health expert, about what students can be doing, some practical info on health and wellness, about establishing good habits for mental and physical health, and really knowing how and when to seek help when you need it. I just want to point out we had one other panelist who isn't able to attend, Jackie Garrick. Unfortunately, she's lost her power due to the hurricanes in Florida. So best wishes to her, and we'll share some resources throughout this that she had shared with us. Um, and with that, I want to pass it over to Hella to introduce herself.
Hi everyone. My name is Hella Ha'upsh. I am graduating this semester from the University of Texas at Dallas. I am a neuroscience major hoping to go the pre-med path, and I am just super honored, super excited to be able to bestow some of my wisdom, whatever wisdom that may be. I have been in the educational field for about 5 years now. I think I'm hitting six in 2021, basically. But like I said, I'm super honored to be here, give you guys any tips and tricks that I felt have been really helpful, not only to me, but I've seen reciprocated with the students that I've been able to teach. Starting in the educational fields, I was teaching students study skills and health skills and what to do if you need to take a test or have a meeting with an advisor. And over the years, I've taken a more hands-on approach, and that role has kind of molded into something new. So last year, I was given the opportunity to work with Peer Health Exchange, which is a nationwide organization that deals with mental, social, and physical health. And I'm just so happy to be partnered with them because they are doing great work just across nationwide. And this was the first time that they had decided to implement some plans in Dallas. So I was part of that inaugural class to kind of get the ball rolling, teach ninth graders about this is the health class you're not usually used to. So it's a super exciting opportunity, and I'm just happy to be here.
Great. So I think everyone's aware of the risk of COVID and the need to really be careful, both to keep ourselves healthy and not to spread it, wearing masks, washing hands, keeping distance. But right now, what are other areas of health that students really need to be aware of?
I think people are now starting to realize just how important social health and mental health is. Over the years, there's just been so much stigma over it. And I fully admit, I used to be that person. If I had a sad friend who wasn't feeling their best, I would just be like, oh, be happy. It's just a mindset, just be happy. And looking at myself now, if I could give myself advice, I'd be like, stop talking. Don't say that. Be a friend and be there with them. And again, with social health, having to transition to online facilitation, for example, me being a college student, I had to do it the second half after we got back from spring break and in my graduating semester. It's been a challenge for sure because I've had to create more expectations of myself and kind of check myself more. So focusing on that social health, I was already kind of a busy person, but I was always able to like catch lunch with a friend or go to a friend's house and things like that. But now I'm evolving that role into having a Zoom hangout, FaceTiming more with them, and just being aware that even though I'm not physically able to be with them, I'm still able to socially connect with my peers and things like that. And again, with mental health having so much stigma as it is, people are now starting to take an active approach and saying how it's really important that you have to be mindful of what it does for you, how it affects other people, and things like that. So, Peer Health Exchange, like I mentioned earlier, what we do is we go into classrooms of ninth graders and we teach them social, physical, and mental health. We teach them also about sexual health and substance use and what that basically means. So, being a student, I just think it's been really impactful being in this pandemic because not only have I been able to work as an educator where I've had to switch to teaching online facilitation, I've now had to be that person who receives the online facilitation. And I'm running into problems such as tech. I was giving a presentation one time and my sound just completely went off. So I was kind of talking to a blank wall to my students. So then I was very adaptable and I was able to switch over to the chat box and do things like that. But yeah.
Right. And you mentioned things, like sexual health and other physical health. How are students accessing that in times of COVID, which is already difficult enough, I think, for college students?
For sure. What I've been trying to do, especially focus on my physical health, I've kind of struggled like with my weight a little bit. And I feel like I've always had to put it off to the side because I'm like, oh, I have to, instead of working out, let me focus on this exam. Let me study for this exam. Oh, instead of working out, let me go to this meeting that I have to go to. And I'm now starting to take a more active approach to my health, because if I'm not feeling physically fit, then that's going to affect other areas of my health. So I think what I've come to realize is there are so many resources out there. And what I did, basically, the best advice I can give is just start looking. I just went to YouTube, I typed in best hit workouts that you can do, which is the high intensity interval training. And there is a plethora of free resources that you can go out there. I got in touch with my friends. I asked them what they do to monitor their physical health. I talked to my parents. I went to the health clinic at my school and I let them know basically, hey, this is something that I've been struggling with. What do you recommend that I do, basically? And it's just taking that first active approach of even something as simple as like a Google search, and just definitely seeing how many resources there really are out there. It's like when you move, for example, you don't realize how much stuff you have until you have to put it all in boxes. So you don't know how many resources there are until you start looking.
How would you find resources on campus, given
For
that
sure.
you're
Well,
not actually on campus physically?
for sure. Since I've had the honor of being in the educational field, I've been in close contact with student organizations and my advisors and things like that, like the Student Success Center and things, for example. But what I do is I had asked those, like I had asked my advisors, I'd asked my professors, basically, what do you do in order to get me, what can you do basically to get me connected to school related things, school related resources. And I also go to my school website. And if you just kind of play around with the resources that you see online, I guarantee you'll be able to find something. And even if you're not able to find it on your own, reach out to faculty, reach out to your school's health clinic and things like that.
I like that advice of reaching out to faculty. Often a good teacher might have those connections, even
Oh,
if that's not
absolutely.
their
That's definitely been
area
my
of
experience for sure.
great. Um, I know there are also some sort of national hotlines and crisis hotlines that Jackie had shared with us. So if one of the moderators could post that in the chat, that would be great. Um, so we'll have some additional information popping up in the chat about where to go. If you have a crisis, or if you have a friend who has a crisis, it's really a good thing to do is keep these numbers handy. Even if you don't think you'll need it, you might have a friend who has a
Exactly.
crisis. And like you said, Hala, it's really good if a friend says they're feeling really down, not to just say, oh, sorry to hear that, but to really ask how you can help, to reach
For
back
sure.
out to them occasionally.
I think it's allowed me to be more in tune not only with my emotions, but my friends' actions and their emotions as well. Like I've had friends in the past who have kind of struggled with mental health. And over the years, I've gotten better at picking up this is normal behavior for them, this is abnormal behavior for them, because what's normal for one person is not normal for another person. Me, for example, I'm super happy all the time. I'm super optimistic. So my sisters used to joke with me that if I was like upset with them, basically, like serious hell is coming out right now. So we need to basically like listen to what she's saying because this is obviously not how she normally is.
Good advice. Um, so what else do you have other thoughts for students, what they can do now to keep a healthy perspective and set up some good habits for this school year?
One of the most important things I've learned transitioning and facilitating to online discussion is personal check marks. And I've learned over the years, I learned this a long time ago. And if you write down stuff, you're more likely to achieve them. So I've never been a planner kind of person. I was like, what's the point of having to write it down if you don't even remember that you're going to look in your planner, basically? So I started doing that because I'm like, I've never even really given it a shot. And now I'm a total planner person. I write down at the beginning of the semester, I got all of my syllabi. I wrote down all the exams, all the quizzes that I have. And I'm also a visual person. So I'll make little key diagrams into what I need to know about it, basically. And I think, yeah, just the main thing is just having personal check marks and physically writing it down if that works for you, but play around with different things. Try out the planner. If it doesn't work for you, try a whiteboard. Like I said, the visual. If that doesn't work for you, set little reminders on a calendar. find something that works for you. Because again, what works for you may not work for someone else. It's just having those personal checkpoints.
All right. Do you have any other sort of general thoughts before we turn to some audience questions? I know we've gotten some already.
Um, I think I'm good. I just want to reiterate basically, these are obviously challenging times. I mean, 6 feet apart is pretty sweet, but it doesn't have to mean defeat. So be mindful to wear your mask, take the necessary physical health precautions that you have to do to social distance, put a mask on, stay away from people, because it's not going to go away anytime soon. Since if people keep, acting the way that we do that, basically, if people are not learning the severity of what we're dealing with. But while we are dealing with it, definitely keep mindful of what your actions are doing for other people. I think I see a question.
All right.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think this is all really a good reminder to keep this a little more in the forefront of your mind, not just think like, I'm going to be doing my studying, I feel okay, so I'm okay, but like check in on your own mental health. How am I
Exactly.
feeling? I think I'll tell someone how I'm feeling, whether you're feeling good today or feeling not so good. Let your friends know.
Oh yeah, for sure. And peer health exchange, like we've been doing some fantastic work. Not only was I able to be part of this pilot program for TikToks, which is kind of another resource for students to get health information. Definitely give us a follow, by the way. But we were able to make a few TikToks that talk about so many different aspects of health and checking in and COVID-19 resources. And I think if I was, a younger demographic, like obviously I'm still using TikTok because I'm 22 years old, but I feel like definitely still as a student, that's something that definitely is, I guess you can say, concerning to me, because looking for resources, it's obviously a difficult place to start. But the main thing to do is just go and see what's out there. Like what I decided to do was I just went on Instagram and I typed in mental health hashtag. And I started looking through a bunch of different posts that I felt would be really necessary and important. I followed a bunch of people and blogs and things like that. Again, I went on TikTok and I just followed a hashtag. I followed different accounts that I think would be really important. And it's just being a student and being a peer health educator, they both present, different levels of difficulty when you're dealing with something as severe as COVID. As a peer health educator, it's making that transition to online facilitation, because I'm a gabber. I'm the kind of person who talks with her hands, and when I'm in my classroom, I'm the teacher who's walking around leaning in over the students' shoulders and kind of asking them, "Hey, do you need help with this? Oh, do you want me to explain it again? No problem. I love talking. I can do that for you," basically. So kind of confining myself to virtual facilitation has been a challenge in myself because I am such a social person. But what I do is I outweigh the negatives that I'm feeling of, oh, I don't get to be in front of a classroom, to equating it then to the positives and saying, wait a minute, I'm not in front of a classroom, which means I actually get to social distance from people, but I'm still going to be there for my students. I'm still going to be able to give them the same resources that I would in a classroom. And if anything, I just need to bring more energy to it, since you guys are just seeing my face and my hands kind of moving, and I'm sitting in my bedroom right now, which has been converted to my office. And then as a student, I think also the challenges of COVID, of switching to the virtual facilitation, where again, I'm the kind of person in class as a student, I'm at the very front of the row. I'm raising my hand. I'm answering questions. I'm asking questions. I'm up there and I'm very involved. So being a student and having to switch online, and there are a lot of professors who I have where they'll just be the ones teaching and we have our cameras off and we have our mics off. So it's kind of just like watching a professor talk about a PowerPoint, watching them make notes that they read in the textbook. So it's making those mental checks of, yes, I'm not physically in the classroom, but I'm still going to try to answer as many questions as I can. I'm still going to be involved. I'm still going to, try to do what I can basically to be a good student, use my planner, make those mental health checks, and just be present. Those are
It's
just like
great advice.
educating.
And I see a question that came through earlier
Mhm.
was what's the best way to get through and talk to someone about mental health if you're a shy person? And I think that
For
relates to what you
sure.
were just saying. Also, the advice you were just giving is really about sort of putting yourself out there. And as a shy person myself, I know one thing that helps me is whatever I'm doing is just sort of force myself to take it up one level. Like I could turn off my video, but maybe I'll turn it on and it'll force me to be a little more engaged.
Oh yeah,
Um,
for sure.
and a nice way for getting help, thinking about that, is you're shy and you're thinking, I really don't want to walk in and talk to someone about, I don't feel great and I might need some help. Well, it's really scary to have that conversation. But if you feel like you might need it, think about just one quick email to send. And it's going to help you get over that hump because you send that email off to someone. And when you get a reply, suddenly you're going to be talking to them.
Oh,
But
for
that's
sure. The
okay
way I
because
like to
you want to go there. So push yourself that one little step
Oh yeah, for
to help you
sure.
get
For
there.
sure. I mean, being like the gabber that I am and being super extroverted, I wasn't always like that. I remember there was a time in 5th grade, I was basically giving a speech and then I totally forgot the rest of my speech. So I kind of just stood there frozen and then I kind of just shyly walked off the stage, the little classroom that I was performing in front of. And it's kind of just the awkward applause of, oh, was she done? Did she finish? But I took that moment and I kind of channeled it into the person that I wanted to be and I wanted to improve. So I started getting my mirror and I started talking in front of my mirror. I practiced that speech over and over again until I had perfected it and became kind of the speaker that you see in front of you today because no one is born a fantastic speaker. I've
Do you
told
think
my
someone
friends,
could do that with just practicing asking for help about
oh,
their
yeah, for
mental health?
sure.
Just
Like you
stand in a
basically just,
mirror.
for sure, for sure. Talk to your pets if you have any, talk to your plants if you want. It's just taking that first initial step of kind of just like getting over a fear. If you're terrified of snakes, look at a picture of a snake. Then maybe see a video of a snake, then kind of build your way up. The way I like to think of it is the foot in the door approach. If, for example, you're hosting a radio show, you're hosting a TV show segment, and you ask a random stranger on the street, hey, do you want to be in my TV segment? More than likely they're going to say no, unless you're talking to me. I'm all over that. But more than likely they would say no because who just wants to be on TV automatically like that? So you start with the foot in the door approach. You let them know, hey, the person I was supposed to have this TV segment with bailed on me. Would you mind just looking over the questions so I can find someone else? See if they approve the questions. Then you tell them, oh, can you just sit in this chair to see how it looks like with a co host that I have? And they'll more than likely sit in the chair. And then you tell them, oh, can we put some makeup on you basically to get you TV ready as if to see, what you look like as a co host. And then as you start building up to that, more than likely you kind of just use the foot in the door approach as opposed to just asking them, hey, you want to be my co host on this TV segment that's airing right now?
Good. All right. So I see a question came through from the audience. Suggestions we have for current high school seniors who are applying for college who might not be able to apply to their preferred college because they're out of town. I think it's a really good question. A lot of people are struggling with right now. It's really important that people go to a college, be somewhere where they feel safe, stay with their family if they need to, choose what makes sense, what they can afford, and what feels safe to them. But also, now is a really important time to go to college, to not drop out of the labor or the education
No,
system.
absolutely.
And I think there's a lot in the press about the challenges of online learning, and they're real. At the same time, people are learning. I think from kindergarten through 12th grade and into college, there's a lot of good teaching and learning still going on. So I think some good advice to high school seniors is focus on what you want to learn, how you can learn it, where you can do it. It's a lot different than it was a year ago, but it's still really important and there's a lot out there.
Absolutely. I think definitely one thing that I've really admired is UTD reaching out to its current students and letting us know, hey, these are the updates. It's up to date updates basically of what we're doing to protect you guys from COVID, which includes letting us know about positive cases that are happening. So if you are a high school senior, obviously you're not going to have a college reaching out to you because you're not a student there yet. But I would suggest you take the proactive approach and reach out to the schools, either go to the advisors or go to the academic and registration and ask them, what is your current COVID-19 plan? More than likely, if you go to their website, they'll have COVID-19 news and what you need to know. But take it one step further and ask an advisor, ask someone in registration, I'm a high school senior. What can you tell me? What can I expect if I'm hoping to apply to your school? My little sister, she is at Austin right now and she's staying in the dorms. She thankfully doesn't have any in-person classes. But me being the big sister, I'm just calling her multiple times throughout the day saying, hey, are you sure? You're like, don't leave. Make sure you put your mask on. And she's saying, Hella, I know. Like, duh. So it's just being concerned for her and having her not out of town, basically, because she's like a good 3 or 4 miles from where I am. And it's just keeping, track of, what's going on and making sure that her school is doing what they need to do. Because I also subscribed to their COVID-19 news to see what's going on with UT as well as what's going on with UTD.
That's great. One other, I just got a side note, a nice reminder that one more thing for the high school students and their parents who are looking at college going, and thinking about where they're going to go if they can't go to their preferred school because of COVID, to think about transfer policies. So think about maybe a local community college, another college in the area if you want to stay close to home, but make sure that the classes you sign up for are going to transfer to that college you ultimately want to go to. And again, that's somewhere where you can talk to folks on campus, reaching out to the admissions office, college counselors who can help with advice there.
Absolutely. Just taking that proactive approach. What are you guys doing to kind of secure health practices? What are you doing for me that's going to make me feel safe? That's going to make my family feel safe? Because again, like I said with my little sister, it's not enough for them to be like, hey, you're a UT student. This is what we're doing. As a sister, her parents, like our parents, we want to know what's going on. What health practices are they following? And again, just during this unpredictable, scary, nerve-wracking time, you just have to be mindful of practicing good general healthy habits. There was one of the earlier TikToks that I did. It was about coping mechanisms. And I don't know how many people know, but it's that sound that goes like, nope, yup, nope, yup. And I basically was just pointing out different coping mechanisms. And again, like I said earlier, when I was younger, I had so many preconceived notions of what mental health was about, of, oh, just be happy, oh, this. So I'm very thankful to be partnered with Peer Health Exchange because they've taught me so much information that I wasn't even aware of. So good coping mechanisms. I'm that person who every once in a while, like I'm a sensitive person, I'll cry even at like dumb movies, really good songs, things like that. So a good cry session for me has always been something that's been very therapeutic, very good. I've had a friend who kind of kept things bottled in. And at the end of the day, that's only going to make things worse for you. So over the years, she's learned to open up to me and talk to other people about what she's going through if she's not feeling okay, because it's okay to not feel okay sometimes. You don't always have to be 100% happy in the mood. Like I said earlier, my sisters used to joke that if I was getting serious with them, oh, serious hell is coming out. And it's just like, no, I'm allowed to be serious sometimes. You did something that kind of upset me. I'm not going to be happy and optimistic all the time. So just being mindful of, healthy habits. If you need to have a good cry session, if that feels right to you, go ahead and do that. Ignore the stigma behind it, because before you're a male or a female, non-binary, whatever you identify as, you're a human being who feels things, has emotions, and goes through the ups and downs of what life has to offer you. So yeah.
And back to your mention of TikTok, I think it's great. It's a way for people to find fun things, and there's a lot of information there too, and Instagram and on the internet. There's some great information and resources. There are also things that can be really harmful that either aren't true or can get you sort of caught up in reading really depressing things without giving yourself a break from that. So I think it's important to also to take a break when you need it
Oh,
and to
sure.
check your sources. Just like in your class, when they're telling you you can't just use one resource, you need to tell me where you got that, how you know it's legitimate. Same thing when you're sitting there on TikTok at night reading something and you get upset about something or you think you found something true, make sure you check your sources.
Oh yeah, for sure. I used to be that person also. I feel like I've grown so much over the years. So if I could talk to my previous self, I just want to tell you, like, what are you doing? Like, listen to your resources. But I would see like articles with like interesting titles and I'd be like, oh my God. And I would kind of skim through it and then I would send it over to someone, which is so harmful because not only do you have to read that entirety of the article, you have to make sure where they got their information from. I mean, who knows how many people are legitimately sending the Onion articles? Because I guarantee there are some people who think those are real things, by the way. So definitely, like you were saying, Evan, check your resources. Even with something as simple as TikTok, Peer Health Exchange is doing its best to give credit where credit is due, and we double, triple check our fact sources. But if you come across someone else's TikTok where it's like, oh, that's actually kind of interesting, but I didn't think that was true or I didn't think that was false, kind of take that initiative of looking it up online and being like, wait a minute, is this something that people are talking about in a positive way, negative way, and just being mindful of what that means.
Yeah. And those are things you can look up yourself. You can reach out to your friends. You can reach out to your college for, especially things related to the college, related to health. Um, Contact someone at the college and ask them.
Absolutely. And there's just a plethora of resources basically that even if you're not physically on campus to, for example, like go to an on-site counselor, a lot of times they'll either already have an online system that you can do, or they've taken that initiative of saying, hey, we are currently in a pandemic, but we are still here for you, basically. So we want to be able to have online sessions that you need. There's a plethora of, I think, apps also. There are some YouTubers that I watch that'll talk about like the sponsors that they do. And one of them really caught my eye. I'm trying to remember what the name is. But if you probably just Google it in the App Store, if you Google it or if it's in the App Store, there are counselors you can talk to through apps if that's what you're comfortable with on-site or in-person things of counselors and therapists and things like that.
Yeah. And I see now in the chat, there's the Peer Health Exchange TikTok. So that's somewhere we know there's going to be really reliable, good
For
information.
sure. I've worked with a
Great.
fantastic team, like I said.
Great. So I see another question here. In what surprising ways are you seeing the events from the past few months impact students emotionally and mentally?
I think I touched on this earlier, but I think it's just students taking a more active approach to their mental health and their physical health. I've definitely seen it with myself. And like I said, with the example of you don't know how many resources are out there until you start looking, I think people are really surprising themselves in a way that they can still stay connected. I had a Zoom meeting with these my friends that I've been with since I was at UT Arlington because I went there for my first 2 years of education. I met them like in that freshman course that you take that tells you about study skills and test taking skills and things like that. And I've maintained a friendship with them over the years. So I was already practicing kind of getting in touch with them, texting them, and doing things like that. But we actually had our first Zoom meeting with each other. It was a Zoom hangout that we did last week. And it was just great, be able to like see their faces and interact with them and not just, text with them. So I think that's really surprising that there's so many ways that you can stay connected without physically being connected to someone. I think I'm also surprised at the number of times I touch my face because I've been doing that a lot right now. So it's just being more mindful of I'm touching my face, but then I have to be sure to wash my hands. And even something as simple as like 20 seconds, just singing happy birthday twice. You don't think about that stuff because we live in such a world where everything is happening all the time. A lot of things are going on at once. I remember when it first started and we were in our quarantine, I was driving with my dad and I just like looked out at all the streets and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, there's like no cars here. People are like no one's doing anything essentially. And then come a few months later, you see like the number of cars and I'm just like, it's just so weird to think that like we were on pause and then we kind of just went back to the hustle and bustle. Like the hustle and bustle is what's normal. So having that sense of like silence and not really doing anything, I think was definitely surprising. But also just the number of resources that are truly out there and the number of people that just really want you to succeed and want to support you and be there for you.
So another question came through, what are some ways for teachers to engage and connect with students in an online digital environment to
For
best
sure.
support them? And one thing I know, I was talking to a friend the other day who's a teacher who said she has really just sort of set aside parts of her curriculum and spend more time focusing on making sure her students can connect,
Mhm.
encouraging them to connect, giving them some time, which probably in the classroom would have happened anyways, where there's that little extra time chatting and standing in the hallways or, even in the class. She's giving those breaks during the Zoom classes, saying, okay, have breakout rooms and not giving them too much structure, but allowing them to connect on things academically as well as their health and other issues. Do
Exactly.
you have other
One of the
thoughts
things
for
that
what
I've
teachers
really,
can be doing?
yeah. So one of the things I've really loved being an educator, again, I've always been that educator, that teacher who it's like, oh, John, what is your opinion about this? Sarah, what do you think? And things like that, and keeping them engaged. So having to switch to an online format was a challenge. But one of the things I did is I would go back through my PowerPoints and I would add in the questions. And then I would also ask the questions and let them know, hey, just so you know, this is, oh, sorry, I'm getting emails. The hustle and bustle. So, like I said, but I would add in I would add in the questions and then I would ask in the chat box and basically if the students weren't like watching me with their webcam and they weren't like looking at the screen, they could look at the chat box. So just being accessible. If you want to look at the PowerPoint through my share screen, if you want to see the question through the chat box. And then another thing is I'm a super supporter of Kahoot. I love it so much. I love that you can basically type
What
in
is
the
that?
Kahoot.
Uh-huh.
Oh, so it's basically like this online quiz that you can do. You create questions and then you send out the link to your students. They join in with the pin and it's basically timed. You ask a question, you have the four options. They have different quiz formats, but I've always used like the multiple choice. And whoever answers the fastest then basically wins the game. So definitely I suggest going to the Kahoot website and playing around because there's a lot of quizzes already pre-made that like span a plethora. If you want to have a Disney quiz, if you want to have a world geography quiz, if you want to talk about peer health exchange, I've made a few for them. So having activities that connect students. So having the Kahoot, for example, and being there for them. Yes, Kahoot is definitely awesome sauce, by the way. I love Kahoot. And if you want to know how to work Kahoot, if you have questions, please reach out to me. Like I said, I'm a super supporter of Kahoot. I love it. I've been trying to find more like online quiz formats, but I think Kahoot has just always been my favorite. The do music, like nostalgia.
And I think something implied there is keep it fun. At least
Yes,
build in fun into this.
for sure.
Because
I'll tell you,
so
Evan. I used to
strange
teach
times.
the freshman course that I taught. It was for other classes because we had it split it up by the majors. So I was a biochem major at the time, kind of teaching chemistry students, not chemistry itself because I'm not a fan of chemistry, but I was teaching them resources that they can use from their chemistry advisors and study skills, things like that. and everyone had 1 hour meetings that they would do twice a week. I don't know why, but chemistry decided to have a 2 hour meeting that took place on a Friday. So I had to go through my syllabus and I had to go through basically my lesson for the day. And I had to say, okay, if I was a student, I'm not going to give a 2 hour presentation and listen to it basically. So I had to incorporate fun activities for them to do. I would allow them to have breaks. I would add in cahoots. I would bring in guest speakers sometimes and keep them engaged. So that's also something that you can translate over to an online facilitation. That's what I did. I brought in a guest speaker at one point. I used Kahoot. I allowed my students mental health checks. I'm like, hey, does anyone have any questions? Do I need to repeat anything? Does anyone want to take a break, step out? And just being accessible to your students.
Great. So another question, sort of thinking about what are some good general healthy habits that college students should try to cultivate, especially you're thinking about a new student this year, they're starting college, working remote, but presumably within the next year or so, they're going to be on campus. So what's some advice you have for getting in good habits now that are going to translate into the long run?
I think the first thing to do is define what health is and what health means to you. Because if you just say health, a lot of the times people are just going to think, oh, it just means I'm not sick or I'm immune to something. But health is such a cluster of so many different things that you have to have. It's talking about your physical health. It's talking about your mental health. It's talking about your social health. So I think the first thing to do is just define what health is. And then, like I said, I'm a visual person. I like to write stuff down. So I would split it up kind of like in a T chart or a chart. And I would write down social health, mental health, physical health. I'd write down what I'm doing for each of those currently. And then I would write down a goal that I want to do. So for mental health, for example, a good healthy habit that I've learned, like I said earlier, have a good cry session and talk with someone about what you're feeling, even if what you're feeling is not necessarily a good feeling. I'm blessed to have a really big family. I love them to death. Sometimes they'll come in and, like do things like that. But I know that I'll always have someone that I can turn to if I have to talk about something. And even if you don't have a big family, your school would have advisors, counselors, friends, basically, that you can reach out to have that good talking session. Healthy habits that are physical that I've been doing is I've also been aware of how much I've been eating out. So I've been starting to make more meal prepping plans. And I've just been, like I said, making that plan of, okay, tomorrow, let's have a salad that I'm going to make myself. Let's plan what we're going to have for dinner. Let's plan this. And then if you want to eat out every once in a while, do that basically, because if you want to eat out, I mean, sometimes I definitely crave Taco Bell or Panda Express. I mean, I love their orange chicken, but I'm not going to be eating out constantly because you want to be able to be mindful of taking care of your physical health and taking care of your body. So I've started grocery planning more, meal prepping more, and things like that. And again, with the social health, I feel like I've said check marks so many times in this webinar, but they're just so important that even though you're not physically with someone, it's important to stay connected with them. But then at the same time, as much as you want to stay connected with someone and go to a million Zoom meetings and then also FaceTime people, you need to remind yourself to take a breath and allow yourself to say no to online meetings, because those can also be just as draining as going physically out. So it's just making that mental health of, I'm social, I'm going to do this FaceTime with you, but at the same time, sometimes I just need to be alone and I just need to watch Netflix. I just finished You. Fantastic show. I definitely recommend it, by the way. If you need more movie recs or TV show recs, I can give that too. But those are just some really good things. And then
Great. I think you're more social than I am. For me, it's the
oh,
opposite. I need to remind myself, stay connected.
for sure.
Reach out, have the occasional connection to friends. So when we get back to real life, there'll be people for me to see in real life.
Exactly. There are people who need to recharge
You
basically
want to
by
get
being
back.
alone.
Yeah,
And there are people
but
who
it's
need to
important to
recharge with other
maintain
people.
both, to have that time alone, but to keep those connections. keep them now, whether, virtual, and then when we're back in person, to have them there in person, on campus, wherever you are.
For sure. I've definitely been utilizing the GroupMe more. There's a few GroupMes that I was in one for my neuropsychology class. And then in the middle of it, someone was like, hey, by the way, if you want to join this Women in Health organization, this Women in Health GroupMe, then go ahead and do that too. So I ended up joining that GroupMe, and I found this community of women who basically just want to support people and do that for you and be there for you during this trying time. And then in that GroupMe, I was able to find one for students who are applying to med school. And then I found a support in that. And again, it's just being aware of all those connections that you can make and things like that. So again, yeah, staying connected, even if it's only virtual, because there is still so much value in that.
Yeah. So I see a new question came through. Does starting a journal or meditating help for mental well-being? A lot of friends have been telling me it helps. I'll say personally, meditating can really help. For me, journaling doesn't, because I spend a lot of time writing at work and I need a break from the writing. But it's really important to find a few things that do help for you.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I'm going to kind of do what you did. I'm not going to say yes or no. I'm going to say find what works for you, because I'm the kind of person, I used to enjoy writing when I was younger. I've kind of become more social, so I've kind of talked with people more. So for me, what helps with my mental well-being is being able to talk to someone and talk about my emotions in that regard. If that doesn't work for you, if you're more on the shy side, or if you just don't personally like talking to people, definitely try to start a journal. See if that works for you. If that doesn't work for you, try meditating. If meditating doesn't work for you, try something else. Oh, I have my kitten.
And I would say one other thing to do is to reach out to someone to get advice on that. Talk to your friends about it, which it sounds like this person asking the question did, which is great. And then, talk to your college counselor, talk to someone else.
For sure.
And I love your ideas, Hella, about a checklist. So it might not be the same for everyone, but I think we should all have a checklist of what am I going to do about my mental health? And am I keeping track of that, whether it's
For sure.
journaling or meditation or something different.
Exactly.
For me, I've got taking a walk every afternoon.
Oh my God, I love taking walks. Walks are so good.
Yeah.
I feel like they're underappreciated. More people need to go on walks.
Yeah.
Socially distanced walks.
Exactly. All right. It looks like someone is appreciating your cat. Okay. Are there any other questions that we haven't addressed yet?
For sure. I'm an open book, by the way, so feel free to ask me anything.
This has been really great. Thank you so much for sharing all this.
It was a pleasure.
And I know personally, I'm taking away this idea of a checklist where I've got my daily walks that I'm trying to always do that have been a challenge with all this smoke, but air is clearing, so I'm getting back out there.
Fantastic.
But I'm going to start up some more and pay more attention to that.
I love it for sure. Again, there are so many ways that you can basically benefit your health. And there are so many ways that it's, again, not only physical health, mental health, social health, but one of the best pieces of advice I can give you is find what works for you. And just because you are not physically with someone doesn't mean you can't be connected with them. Find what works for you, stay connected, stay optimistic, and just keep following the guidelines of what you're supposed to do.
Great. Thanks so much. So thanks everyone for attending. I think we're going to wrap up a little bit early. Thank you, Martha, and others at the College Promise Campaign for organizing this. Anjana and Alexis have been helping out quietly in the background, but I really appreciate their work on this as well. So just a reminder, this is being recorded, so it'll be posted up on the College Promise website. If you've joined, you'll get an email about this as well, where to find it. And feel free to share this with others who weren't able to join today. You can sign up for more information about next week's webinar and other information from College Promise. So again, thank you everyone. Have a good rest of the week.
Have a fantastic day, y'all. It was So great to meet all of y'all. Remember, stay physically, socially, and mentally healthy.